are the champion, the one that holds the line and finishes the mission. Everything that you want is within your grasp. You wake up in the morning ready to dominate the day, and every step taken is with purpose and integrity, because you were not put on this planet to live a mediocre existence. You are here to conquer and make the biggest impact possible, not only for yourself, but for your family and for your tribe. This world is a battlefield, and we will be victorious. This is the Norse Mentality.
What's up, guys? I hope that you are having a glorious day. Today, me and Cowboy Cody are going to talk about following your own path, making your own rules, and living life by your own terms. This is such an important discussion to have because a lot of people are lost nowadays. They do not agree with what is going on in the world, what is going on with modern culture, but there's so much anxiety around breaking away from it, being an outcast in the world that we live in now. And the reason that is such a scary thing is because it's part of our DNA. It's part of evolution. If you were an outcast in a tribe a couple thousand years ago, whatever, you were cast out. And if you did not have a tribe, you did not survive. Well, the world has changed. And also morals and values have changed. And we no longer live life how we should, as far as I'm concerned. When I look around at today's world, I'm disgusted by it. There's so much of it that I do not agree with. I can't even let my kid watch TV without there being some underlying agenda on some cartoon that was designed for 5-year-olds. There's so much of it that I know in my gut that it's wrong. And I'm okay with expressing that. But I know there's a lot of anxiety around that for most people because they don't want to be cast out. That is a very scary thing. But in order to make your own path throughout life, you have to embrace this outcast mindset. I don't care what other people think about me and my beliefs because they are mine. You can think whatever you want. I can think whatever I want. But in today's world, that is unacceptable. Everyone is supposed to follow the same rules, live life the exact same way, and if you don't, then people try to ruin your life as a result. Now, that doesn't matter. That's what we have to push past here. You don't like what I think. I don't give a shit. That's that kind of self-talk that you have to have here. Now, how do we get to that point? Has this ever been something that you've struggled with?
Oh yeah, it started like probably age 26 when I really started diving into self-improvement. It was definitely one of those things coming from, how I was raised with, my family and everything. I had to challenge every bit of that. So it absolutely happened with me. Definitely with certain friend groups, my family, like I said. But I knew that this was the best path for me to take, as far as like my future, my state of well-being and my goals and agenda go.
What told you that? Like, how did you come to that conclusion that this was the best thing for you to do?
I think the best way I can put it is I listened to my body and how it reacted to certain things. Like you said, mentioned earlier about a gut feeling. I wasn't like riddled with anxiety, but I felt a disconnect between my true self and what I was doing.
Yeah. The true self that he's referring to, I'm guessing, I don't know exactly what's going on in your head, but that true self is that internal intuition, that internal just that this is the truth.
That non-biased, non-emotional version of you.
Yes. And that is a very hard thing to get in contact with. But the older you get, I think the more that you start to see that. And that's really why there's so many people that end up struggling around the age of 28, 29, 26, whatever it is. Like your mid-20s to 30s, that's kind of what that is for, is you're starting to break away from your childhood, your family, all these different things. A lot of people are moving to different locations where they don't know anybody. It's a different culture, whatever it is. And you're able to start thinking for yourself. That's why I always tell people, like, you need to get out of your hometown for at least a few years. You can go back if it's somewhere that you really enjoyed. I'm sure as hell not going back to mine. But some people, it's like, yeah, we're like, I want to raise a family in the same place that I grew up. But that doesn't mean that you should stay there from the time you were born until you die. You need to break away from everything, from your family, your childhood friends, all of these different things, because you are not able to come to this conclusion of what you actually stand for and what you believe in if you're in that same environment.
The age range you mentioned is a very important part, because it's where you start to solidify yourself as a person, as an adult, and neuroplasticity wise, like your brain is at a mature functioning state.
It happens right around 25.
Yeah, it's at 25 to 30 range is very important.
You're starting to live life on your own terms too, because people are graduating college. Maybe they have like a more suiting job for them, making a little bit more money, doing something that they're actually passionate about, whatever it is. Maybe they meet someone, they start having kids, they're getting married. Like you really transition from an adolescent into an adult around that 25 age. And because you're doing that, you're becoming a different person. Every part of us actually changes every 7 years. I don't think a lot of people realize that, but like your genes, all these different things, your taste buds, so much of who you are goes through this dramatic death and rebirth every 7 years. And that's something that we can dive into more on a different episode. What were you going to say? Go ahead.
I was going to ask if you thought that people fight that.
I think they fight, but it's something that they can't really fight. They can fight it on a belief level, like mindset. But as far as like you as an individual, like your body is doing this whether you like it or not. You are shedding away the old you and turning into someone different. So that's why getting stuck in this is who I am, that's bullshit, because you're not even the same person. You are not the same person that you were 10 years ago. And science has proven that you are not the same person that you were 7 years ago, because we go through this dramatic change with our bodies every 7 years. But around that 25, that really is a pivoting time for people. And it's also a time when a lot of people feel lost and they feel confused, which is why we're making this episode. Or maybe you're in your 30s or 40s. Like, it really doesn't matter what age you're in. Like I said, when you look around at the world, there's probably a lot of shit that you're just like, what the fuck is going on here? I don't want to be a part of this, but you're scared to break away from it, because if you break away from it, you may lose people. And that's the scariest part here. Now, for me, I don't think this has ever been a thing. I've always been just a stubborn motherfucker that hates authority. I was always that person growing up where if there was a trend, I was doing the opposite. And that still kind of bites me in the ass, if I'm being honest. Even with business here at Norse, the main rule that we follow is we make our own rules. If we see that there's this trend going on social media or in the fitness world or something like that, we do not follow it. We will not allow ourselves to. Now, there has been times where it's like, yeah, maybe I should have given that a shot. But at the same time, it has allowed us to separate ourselves in such a saturated market, because we do not follow what other people do. We are on our own path, doing what we want to do, what we think is right, living by our morals and our core values and stuff like that. And the reason that was so easy to implement into this business is because that's how I've always lived life. I don't know where that came from. Maybe my dad like put it into my head or something. He's kind of like that as well, I think. But either way, I've always hated this idea of anyone telling me what I need to do. That's how I knew at a very young age that I needed to be an entrepreneur, because I cannot work for anybody else because of that shit right there. And the few jobs that I did have outside of Norse, I was always butting heads with the managers and stuff. And school, it was the same shit. Like, it's just not something that I can do. But at the same time, I was a part of different groups and subcultures and stuff growing up, like in the hardcore scene. And even there, I was like, I don't like this, but I was almost scared to voice that because of what other people might think. But going back to what we were saying earlier, if we want to follow our own path and if we want to live a life that is unique to us, and that's the most important thing here, this is your life. No one else will ever live this life. No one else will ever have the same thoughts, experiences, reality. All of these different things are very unique to you. Why would you want to make that the same as everybody else? You are a unique individual that can accomplish anything that they want, but the only way that you accomplish huge things and make a life that is worth a fuck is by doing things by your own terms. It's deciding what you want and then going after it, not what your parents wanted you to do, not what the school system said that you need to do, not what the government's telling you what to do, not influencers and movie stars and all this stuff. Like, no, what do you want to do? How do you want to live your life? Do you want a family? Cool. If you don't want a family, that's cool too. All of these things are conclusions that you need to come to on your own. It's the same with fitness. If you enjoy powerlifting, sick. Do powerlifting. If you want to do strongman, awesome. Do strongman. If you want to bodybuild, do bodybuilding workouts. You want to do CrossFit? Cool. If you don't want to do any of that and you just want to focus on jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai or maybe run, it doesn't matter. But even in those things, people are scared to break away. It's like, I really don't enjoy doing this sport, but I'm doing it because all my friends are. And if I stop doing it, then they're going to like bust my balls or whatever. But what matters more? What someone that is in your life for such a short period of time, because that's the reality of it. People come and go nonstop. I love you. We're bros. But who knows like what it's going to look like in 50 years? You could be living somewhere completely different. I could be living somewhere completely different. We could barely ever talk anymore. But that's like such a rare case that you even have people in your life for longer than 5 years. And especially caring what strangers think, people that you're never going to meet because it's all online, or even if it's just someone like else in the gym or whatever, why should their opinion matter when they're not going to be in your life in 5 years anyways, or even in 6 months in most cases? It's like, this is your life. This is what you want to do. And we have to come to some sort of roadmap here. What do I want to accomplish in this life? What do I believe in? What do I stand for? Absent of what everyone else is telling you what you need to think and do. When you said earlier that, you had to break away from what your family and stuff believed in, and that was hard because they were probably telling you this is not the right thing to do and all that. Like, how did you stay true to yourself and push past that whenever everyone was in your ears saying that what you're doing is wrong? So
I know this is the same for you, just from the relationship we have, but I will speak to the generational curse breakers. That is me. So my family, the best way I can put this is each generation never challenged how they were raised and what they were doing and thought for themselves. And I was that stopping point. So I'm the black sheep of my family for the best reasons possible. A lot of people say that and wear it as a badge of honor because they have done things that negatively to hurt other people that they're surrounded by. But mine is for the best reasons. I want the best for myself, and I had this transition when like I said earlier, when I really started diving into the self-improvement journey, where I challenged how I was raised, where I acknowledged like all these things that were different about me versus, the rest of my family and friends. And the best piece of advice that I could give someone that is another generational curse breaker in their family, or is challenging, how they were raised, their morals and values of everyone around them, is you're going to be misunderstood. And you have to be okay with that. Because if people around you have never wanted to do better for themselves and do not do anything to better themselves on a daily basis, they're not going to be able to understand you if you are that person, no matter how hard you try to explain yourself. Because it's one of those things, like I can tell you about something you're unfamiliar with all day long. I'll use nursing for an example. I could tell you how nursing is, and I could tell you all these things, but until you actually do it, you will never understand it completely. So that was one of the things that I really had to come to terms with, and it's part of the outcast being different mindset that you mentioned. Like, you have to be okay with being misunderstood. And making that switch has probably been one of the most beneficial things I've done in my life so far.
Let me ask you this. Does it matter if someone else understands you or not? I know it bothers us, like ego-wise or something of the sort. Like, we want to be understood by other people, and it's a very powerful feeling. It makes us feel a certain way. If you do not understand how I'm feeling right now, that upsets me. But at the end of the day, does it matter if another person understands you or not?
I think the reason that it did to me at that time was because it was people that I loved and cared about.
Yeah, and you feel like they don't love you and care about you as much if they don't understand you. How
Correct.
could they?
Yeah, like that's something that really hit me hard, and I had to come to terms with, like exactly what you said. They can't.
But they do love you.
They do.
Of course. And that's the thing here is we need to break away from that. Is if someone doesn't understand you or this life journey that you're on and this path that you've chosen, it doesn't mean that they don't love you. They're just incapable of comprehending it. And how could they? Because I've had to deal with the same thing. When I started doing business and stuff, I just quit talking to most people about business and the stress that I was under every day and these challenges and stuff that I was taking because they wouldn't understand it. And I realized that after about a year or two, and I just quit talking about it. And that's okay because it was a repeating cycle of that. It was me getting upset because this person doesn't understand how I'm feeling and I couldn't talk to them about it. But how could they? And it's letting go of that. Okay, I can express myself, and if this other person understands me, cool. If not, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't change anything. So we have to push past that terrible feeling of this person I love this person and they don't understand what I'm saying. Yes, that's a terrible feeling, but at the end of the day, it's a silly feeling. It makes no impact. It really does not impact your life at all. So it's getting past that and just being okay with it. There's no way for this person to understand what I'm going through. I know they care about me. I know they love me. Cool. Now, if you do choose this path of individuality, of living life by your own rules, it's going to be lonely. You're not going to have anyone to relate to. You're not going to be able to have conversations at a deep level with people anymore. These are all things that I've experienced as well. Also, people just don't want to be around you as much anymore because you don't have the same things in common.
You rattle people.
You rattle people too. And you also make them feel like shit. If you are a high performing person that wants to make the most out of their life, let me pause there real quick. Why do you want to be a high performer person? This is something that I think people need to like really sit on. Do you want to be a high performing individual because you want all this wealth, materialistic shit and whatever, because that's what American culture says that you need? You need to work 100 hours a week and all this because you need this, you need to compete with this person? Or do you want to be a high performer because you want to live life to its fullest for yourself so you can experience as much as you can, so you can reach this highest peak of your true potential before you die? Those are two different things there. So in order to really stay on this outcast path, that we'll call it, I guess, you need to make sure that you're doing this for the right reasons, because if you're doing it to compete with other people, you're always going to be looking for acceptance from other people. How do you expect to not be okay with what other people think about you if the only reason you're doing it is because you're looking for attention and recognition anyways? It doesn't fucking matter. You cannot do any of this in order to get recognition from other people because they don't care at the end of the day. They want you to succeed. They want you to be happy, but they have their own life to worry about. They're pursuing their own life's journey. But if we're looking for recognition from other people because we're being needy or because we don't feel loved enough or whatever it is, you're not going to be able to do this. You have to do this for yourself. And no matter what, it doesn't matter what other people think about it. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for me. I'm not doing this to compete with the person across the street that has a nicer car and a bigger house. I'm doing this for me because I want to see what I'm going to pursue this because I feel like it would bring me fulfillment in life. And that's what makes me happy. That's what ignites my internal fire. And I want to pursue that as much as possible. That way I have energy to just conquer everything around me.
I like that you brought up being lonely. I wish that was something I had prepared myself for a little more when starting like my own self-improvement journey, because it's very lonely, and it's lonely because once you start improving yourself and wanting better for yourself and taking your own path, you start to realize that everyone around you is very stagnant. and kind of locked in their own behavior, which nothing towards them. But, once you kind of accelerate out of that group, it's going to be hard for you to relate to other people at a certain depth. You're not going to want shallow interaction. You're not going to want shallow relationships with anyone. That was one of the hardest things I had to deal with. Now, to shed some light on that topic, the people you do meet will be very few and far between, but the connections and bonds you have with those people will be stronger than any connection and bond you've had with someone previously.
Those people actually give you energy to pursue whatever you're pursuing instead of draining you from it.
And they don't even have to be doing the same things that you do. That's the cool part about it. Your paths may align for a little bit, but just because they're a genuine person, you hold on to that.
It's because they're working on yourself.
Yeah, like you said earlier, we do this podcast now and we are under the same roof now, and 15, 20 years, it may not look like that, but the connection that you and I have had, because it's been so genuine, that never goes anywhere. And that has been a big driving factor for me in my own path, knowing that like the people I do run across and form these connections with, they're solid people that are going to be there for a long time.
Yeah. And even if you don't talk to these people for 6 months or so, no problem. And that's something that you come to terms with too, is you're not going to talk to these people every day like you did in your early 20s in high school and stuff like that. Your friends are busy as well, pursuing their own goals. They have their own responsibilities and stuff like that. So you may go 3 to 6 months without talking to someone. It doesn't mean that person doesn't like you. It doesn't mean that you don't have any friends or anything like that. It just means that they're busy, just like you should be as well. If you're sitting around being like, oh, no one ever texts me, it means that you're not occupied. It means that you're not pursuing your own things and that you're just sitting around with nothing else better to do.
The coolest part about that for me is, say you don't see one of your close people for a month, and then you link up. That moment that you have together, you look at it very differently, and the conversations are very different because, you enjoy your time with that person. You enjoy giving your time to that person. And those conversations are more or less like you conversing with the other person about what they've accomplished in the past month. And it's really fucking cool.
You guys are sharing victories.
Yeah.
And because you guys are sharing victories, you end up getting fired up from the conversation. And then you go back out there, back on your journey, fired up, wanting to see what else you can accomplish because your bro is killing it too. And you know that you guys are killing life together. And that's what I mean by they feed you energy. Whenever you are around like-minded people that are on a similar path as you, and they're just getting after it and wanting to make the most out of their life for the right reasons, being in their presence gives you energy to work towards your own goals.
I'd like to refer to it as a recharge.
It is a recharge. It's an absolutely amazing thing to get around someone that you haven't seen in a while that's crushing it because they inspire you. And it's amazing to see people that you care about doing so well. It's never a competition thing. It's always just like, I love this. I love that you're killing it. I love that I'm killing it. I love that we can talk about all these victories that we're stacking together. But you do have less of those. You have less of those conversations and you have less of those friends. Now, here's the beautiful part about being lonely. And because it is a beautiful thing, loneliness will teach you more about yourself than anything else in this world will. More people need to spend time alone. I spent 2 years completely alone, outside of coming to work and having interactions here and over at the Norse compound. I spent all my time alone. I was eating at restaurants by myself. I was hiking by myself. I was camping by myself. I was going on trips by myself to different places and then staying by myself. I did all of this for 2 years. And what that made me do was learn to love myself and love my own company. That way I didn't need acceptance from other people. I didn't care what other people thought because all I need at the end of the day is myself.
Yeah, you didn't fill your own holes with something or someone else. And
No.
I think that's a huge problem that a lot of people have today.
You also have more time. Think about it. You got less people demanding time from you. Guess what you have more time for? Yourself and working on yourself, leveling up. On Fridays and Saturday nights, I wasn't texting people trying to find out what everyone was doing. That way I could go hang out. I was sitting at home reading or just getting sleep because weekends don't exist for me. They don't. Here recently, Sundays have been like a mandatory recharge day, which is something I've had to implement into my life. But even then, I delete all social media from my phone. And now it's become a weekend thing. I deleted it last Friday and I didn't re-download it until like noon on Monday. But I delete social media. I try to stay off my phone as much as possible. And I'm really not around anybody except for my girlfriend and daughter. And that's on purpose. But before I had that, on weekends, I was still doing the same shit. And I was taking that time for myself. Whenever you are lonely, it means that you have more time to invest into you. It means that you have more time to pursue this passion that maybe you've recently discovered. You can read more, you can take courses, you can do all these different things.
I think one of the most important aspects of that is being closed off from outside persuasion.
Yeah, because other people are going to tell you that what you're doing is wrong, or they might judge what you're doing. I did have people doing that too, and I'm sure you have as well, because you're on a similar path that I was. But it was definitely when I would tell people on my birthday, man, I went through 2 birthdays like this. I came in here to work out and something would come up. It's like, today's your birthday, right? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what are you doing? I was like, well, I'm going to work out and I'm going to go for a hike. And then I'm probably going to get like $100 worth of sushi and go back to my house and eat that. And I don't know, read or something and go to bed. And they're like, that's so sad. I'm like, why is that sad? And because you're alone. I'm like, yeah, I love it. There's nothing like, I didn't see any issue with it. There was never any point on my birthday that I was like, oh, I'm lonely. I didn't contact anyone. I could have hung out with friends or something. I just didn't want to. I just wanted to celebrate me for me. But there's other times too because I had like a weekly date night where I just bought a bunch of sushi and I ate it by myself at home. And I would tell people that and they would feel bad for me. And it didn't really affect me, but that could be applied to other things as well. Why are you reading about that? You know, if you tell someone like, yeah, I've just been really studying this, they're like, why? And as soon as they say that, why? This little part of you is like, I don't know. Why am I doing that? You know, like you start feeling insecure and stuff. But that's why you need to be doing it for the right reasons. You need to be so confident in what you're doing and knowing that it's the right thing for you that you can't be easily thrown off course by other people's opinion and feedback and stuff. If someone wants to give you their feedback, that's always okay. Great. I can either take it or I can leave it. Thank you either way. Most of the time they're giving you feedback because they care about you. But it doesn't mean that it's something that you have to take to heart. And it doesn't mean that it should derail you from whatever course that you're on. But it is going to be lonely. But loneliness is beautiful. We need to learn how to embrace being lonely. And not only for the self-improvement path, but also for your future relationships. You can't love someone else if you don't love yourself first. You can't love your kid to the full amount if you don't love yourself first. Because if you don't love yourself, then there's some sort of self-hatred inside of you, and that self-hatred will ruin your life. You will self-destruct in different ways. You can't love your friends if you don't love yourself first. Well, how do you get to that point? How do you really get to just love who you are as an individual? How do you discover what you believe in, what you want to pursue in life? How do you get to this conclusion? By spending time alone, cutting out all outside influences. That time that I was talking about, I went a year without any social media. I have a business that's completely ran off social media and I somehow disconnected from it entirely. I didn't listen to podcasts because that was putting shit into my mind as well. I only read certain books that aligned to what I knew I wanted to pursue. Like you have to be very deadly with what you allow into your brain and what you do not, because those things can influence you in ways that you don't even understand at that moment, because it's on a subconscious level. It comes in and then it just sits down there, and all of a sudden it starts controlling your behaviors, the way that you think, the words that you say, all these different things. So like really the best way to be okay with this outcast path is by spending time alone, getting to know yourself and what you stand for, and then pursuing that regardless if other people agree or not. What else do you want to touch on before we wrap this episode up?
I want to relate it back to confidence, because you have to have a very high level of confidence in yourself to be able to do this, to be able to walk through chunks of your life by yourself, being lonely, learning who you are, giving yourself the opportunity to have non-biased, non-emotional conversation internally. You have to be confident as an individual to be able to do that and be okay with not having multitudes of interaction.
I think confidence is a good word for it, but also strength. That's really what it boils down to. Am I strong enough to do this? And you are. It's not that big of a thing. You're going to have to lean into depression a little bit, some anxiety, loneliness, maybe some anger.
Especially at the beginning.
Especially in the beginning. You just have to lean into it. We don't run from it. These are not big things. These are not life or death situations. Regardless of how you're feeling, whatever your mind is telling you, the emotions that are coming up, you just let them come and then you let them go. You observe them. And while you're observing them, that's when you get to know yourself. It's through observation of yourself, your thoughts, your emotions. People don't take the time to do that, because the only way to do that is to separate yourself from everything. Either if it's with hiking, meditating, traveling, going on a walk, mountain biking, lifting weights. Some of my best realizations have came to me in the gym when I was just in the zone, in that flow state. Cut off from social media, cut off from everybody else. I was just connected to myself, because that's what we're doing while we're in the gym. While we are training, we are connecting with ourselves. We're connecting with our body. We're connecting with our mind. It's a very amazing thing when you look at it from that perspective. But in order to execute properly, you have to be present. Well, if you're present, that means that you are aware of what's going on inside of you at that time. But we can't do that with constant distractions. You have to stay off your phone. You need to take time away from the people in your life in order to discover who you are and what you want. And that is how you become okay with following your own path, regardless of what everyone else is saying that you need to do.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Norse Mentality. This podcast is a byproduct of Norse Fitness. We make clothing, fitness accessories, supplements, and other tools to help you reach your true potential. You can check it out at norsefitness.co. And if you found this episode beneficial, please share it with a friend. That way we can continue to make a bigger impact and change the world. Thank you for your support, and we'll talk to you soon.